Hello, this is Samina Sheikh here on ET Now, and with me right now I have Shekhar Natarajan. So join me as I welcome him only on this platform. Lovely to have you, and the insights what you have about AI and technology is something making us actually very curious about it. So now let me start with my first question, and because you have two platforms and you have been kind of branding, rebranding and restructuring them and also connecting them with the humans and also the machine and all. So let's move with this first question to you is, OpenAI is valued at $500 billion actually, and not even like basically a local number, but so the very first question to you is, OpenAI is valued at $500 billion, Anthropic at $61 billion, all building optimization first AI. You're building something fundamentally different, virtue first AI. For institutional investors, is this a different category entirely, or are you competing in the same market? Because valuation multiplies depend on the answer. So I want to know your take on that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's a completely different category altogether. If you think about Anthropic and if you think about OpenAI, they're primarily competing in what I call intelligence engines. You know, they're basically the entire structure and the question they ask is, how do I make the machines smarter, right? And we fundamentally ask a very different question. We ask, how can I make technology mimic what good humans do? Very different, right? So, and that's where this is a brand new category that has never been experienced by the market so far. Because the world of AI is always looked at from a lens of efficiency. And what I fundamentally believe is, once you basically begin to develop models faster, it's a very crowded space right now. Like, you know, there is Anthropic, there is OpenAI, there is like, you know, Quen, there is DeepSeek, and there's a model like, you know, that is generated like, you know, in India right now. So I'm sure like there's going to be like 50-60 models before we are done with this. And there are different types of reasoning models also getting developed at the same time. So model efficiency, as it gets to a certain level, will get commoditized. That I want the investors to know. And when it gets commoditized, it gets cheaper. And when it gets cheaper, it's basically going to be much more ubiquitously available. So the valuation these guys are all getting at this time and age is primarily on the hype that the cycle continues and people continue to kind of harness it at the existing like prices being sold and the innovation they're delivering. But over a period of time, everything gets commoditized. So that's where I think there is a trap for the investors on the existing investments. And obviously, like, you know, what market has always seen is like, you know, when some things like these happen, there's also consolidation. So there will be only few infrastructure players who will actually dominate in the future, whether it's like Google, whether it's OpenAI and Anthropic, and probably others will just fall off. I mean, they're building a strong moat.
Yeah.
Where we are very different is basically we ask the fundamental question, how do I bring human goodness into the technology? The reason why this is a different thinking altogether is, currently 77% of enterprises think that AI cannot be trusted.
Yes.
Okay, their decisions cannot be explained. And there's no way to audit how it came to that decision. And when you overlay all of this and say, was your decision like right in the first place, given all of this complexity and khichdi, how do you even know how to start, where to start from? So this is where we are building a universal layer that sits on every enterprise, every LLM, and we are able to give it the human index, the ability to basically say, can I like bring the goodness of human, apply that as a layer on top, And so every decision, every data point goes through that framework. And now I'm able to understand the decision and basically the ability to comprehend why it made a certain thing. And where I want to amplify human goodness, where I want to focus on efficiency. It's kind of like a temperature that you said. That is a brand new thinking. And according to Al Ramadan, the guy who basically is very famous for category building, his hypothesis is the guys who actually build a new category, they usually carry 76% of the market share. So I'm extremely enthusiastic about like what we are building, because it's first of its kind. It's very needed because it solves the biggest problem that AI has, which is trust problem. If OpenAI went and told everyone that their models are going to do human good, or Google goes and says, you know what, like, you know, we are building models which is going to, you know, amplify human goodness, people are going to laugh at it. You know, so that's where, you know, we have a unique advantage, not only structurally how we are thinking about it, category wise how we are thinking about it, and architecturally how we are thinking about it. The trifecta of all of that makes it very exciting for me as I sit and talk to you.
Rightly said, and I completely agree with your point of view on this entire AI and the way the conversations have been moving forward. But let's talk moats. Google has data, Amazon has infrastructure, Microsoft has enterprise lock-in. What is the defensible competitive advantage of Angelic Intelligence? And critically, can't Google just copy this once you prove the model works?
Yeah, this is a question everyone asks me. Of course, Google can copy me. Like, I would be an idiot to think like, you know, they cannot copy me. But what they cannot copy is trust. So Google and the investors need to know that the moat is just not technical. It is also reputational, which is a very, very big problem today. Imagine how Google makes money. It is making money on ads. So the entire moat is a very exploitive way of thinking. The more I can push you the ads, the more money I make, right? So stooped into the DNA of their culture and the structure is the ability to basically like capitalize on the rent that can be extracted. And fundamentally, if your business and the business model depends on that, you cannot like walk and say, you know, hey, like, you know, I'm going to show you a more trusted world. People will laugh at it. Amazon cannot go and say like, you know, I care about humans. They cannot, right? Microsoft cannot say that. Philanthropy cannot say that. So all of these models were built with a certain architectural framework, and all they were built for is to extract rent out of the system, right? But what we are talking about is fundamentally very different. What I'm talking about is basically understanding what makes human a human, understanding the virtues of the human, and amplifying that behavior. That, I think, is a trust building capability. And businesses are very simple, the way it works. For a business to exist, 3 things have to happen. First, it should be your competitor's weakness. None of these companies can come out and say, we can build a trustworthy AI system. So that is their weakness. Then the consumer wants it. 77% of enterprises say, we cannot trust the output of AI that we are getting today. So there is a demand. And the third, it is your core strength. So what we have built is a virtue native model. So we are not putting safeguards after the fact. We are inducing that into the model itself at the architectural level. So like all the things that makes us human, we are saying every computational decision will take that into consideration. Very different. So now architecturally we got the moat as well. So the strength of my company, the competitor's weakness, and the fact that there is like a consumer demand out there, the trifecta of all of that, the Venn diagram that gets created,
yes,
and that intersection that exists, that's our secret sauce. Okay? And that's why we are like very excited about it. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah, of course. No, because You're like literally talking about where exactly your focus is also, and
Yeah.
the diagram basically kind of technically also you're getting into a point where I think that is where you want to take the vision forward.
Yeah, it's like, like if Google
Though it
kept,
will not still not make sense to a lot of mass out there.
Yeah.
And I'm saying so.
Yeah.
But people who understand, with technology, advancement and all, would understand the back end work, probably
yeah.
is what you're trying to.
So this is like, if you think about it, right? Like Philip Morris is a great example. Philip Morris makes cigarettes. Okay.
Yes.
And if they came out and said, we also sell vitamins, will you buy from Philip Morris? The answer is yes or no. There's no maybe in between.
Because one is like damaging the health and one is like basically wanting the health to be good.
Yes. So therein lies the challenge, right? So you cannot basically tell that I am Philip Morris and I can sell you vitamins. No one will buy that because Philip Morris sells cigarettes.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing that happens in enterprises, and I've seen this, I've worked for large companies. Sometimes being like a startup is a huge advantage over like established companies. You know why? Because the antibodies of the big companies kick in. Because the incentive of all of the executives is to continue to make money and more money for the existing business model. Now, when the business model is at risk, everyone runs for shelter. So they they throw off a lot of antibodies where innovation gets killed like overnight. And I have lived that like through all of the transformations in my life. There are many things I did very successful. There are many things I did super failures. Not because we did not try, not because the idea was not good. It was only because the organization killed it, because it likes to kill the young. That's the problem. So a company like Google, a company like Anthropic and others will get to a point where they will be in conflict with their own business models. And it's very difficult to tell your shareholders, let me make less money now in the hope that you will make more money in the future. So the transformation is always going to be challenging for those people. So this is where I think the advantage lies purely with a company that does not have the baggage. And we don't have the baggage. And it's not just me. I think there are many companies thinking like me that are actually trying to solve this problem, which makes me think that like, I'm not the lone wolf out there. I'm not thinking about something and I'm wishing that like that market existed. There is a market that exists. Now, finally, like, coming to the consumer, like, you talked about the consumer aspect of it and like how much there has been resonance to this. I'll give you a simple stat. In the last 2.5 months, we've been talking about Angelic Intelligence. Call it Malak, call it Deva, whatever, right? It's all the same. What good humans do model. We got 673 million views on social media.
Okay. That's a lot.
And we gained over 2 million followers. And we haven't rolled out the technology yet. We've been trying to pilot this to see how it works internally for us before we want to release this to the world. And the way it works for us is amazing. We are seeing amazing results. So I'm so tickled by the fact, like once I go out and we have tangible proof how this works, I think sky is the limit. So, it's almost like you're telling people what does dignity mean to you when you haven't seen it. But once you show it, they don't want to go back. Right? So that's the beauty of what we are building. I'm excited because I know there is a demand. It's resonating. Why will there be 673 million views on social media in 2.5 months? I'm not talking about, that's almost like 1/20th of the world population. Right? Or 1/10 of the world population. Close to 1/10 of the world population. So it's a big number, by the way. Right? And everything that we have been putting out is resonating with a lot of people because there is deep fear that technology is out there to eat their lunch.
Yes.
Right? And so we are trying to like figure out a way that technology is in servitude of the humans and not the other way around. And that is why Angelic is such a powerful kind of way of thinking about it.
And also, I've realized, like, with our conversations, proceeding, you have ensured both are different, which also makes the brand stand out being unique. Like how Angelic focuses more on, knowing the human level and all that. The other one is more, Orchestro, is more onto basically focusing with logic, which I feel that is the USP also, that in case if you are kind of in a dilemma, you can go to Angelic, and if you are kind of, wanting a situation to be dealt with more logic and more like, practical, it could be Orchestro. And correct me if I'm wrong over here.
Absolutely. So Orchestro, so both of those, like, my company is actually called Sahyog. A lot of people don't know that.
Okay.
It was very difficult for like the Western world to pronounce that word. So they asked me to like change the name of the company so that it is much more palatable and understandable. Sahyog like is openness and collaboration, right? So that is the model I was kind of, it's kind of like people uniting together so we can lift each other.
Yeah.
That's the whole concept. And Orchestro is basically an implementation in the logistics sector. And so we are going to be like applying the same thinking across every different domain, because we deeply understand logistics. And I know logistics for parcels is different than sending like a big container from halfway across the world. Like the ocean containers world is different than how the parcel gets delivered. Different players, different lingo, different methodology, different contractual structures, different players, different way of like even like determining the price of the network, all of the factors that actually like lead up to how to move a product. So we understand that difference, and that difference not only exists in logistics, but it also exists in pharmaceuticals, healthcare, because hospice for a 78-year-old is different than a 38-year-old. Hospital care is different for a elderly versus like a young guy, and is like for pediatric. So there is like marked differences in each of these domains and how they behave. So my hypothesis in the world is that all of these domains will have their own models, right? So, and on the top of the model, which is a practical implementation of how intelligence gets delivered, there has to be a universal layer that you can configure to say, how much efficiency do I want to push and how do I explain my decisions? So that's the horizontal layer that exists. So we are building the combo of the two, because we think the two cannot be separated. They have to be commingled together in the way the decisions are made. Hence, because there is always going to be a little bit of a drift between the two. Like one is thinking at a big level, the other one is thinking at like the logical level, and if the two are not like talking to each other, then you're going to make like illogical decisions. So this is where we're bringing the two worlds together. So, but it's the temperature that you set as a company. You can set your own compass. You can say, I want to only focus on efficiency. Great, go knock yourself. I want to make decisions which are human based. Great. And then there are some companies like Patagonia, which only thinks about like goodness, right? So there's going to be a lot of different variations, and brands, what makes brand a brand in the future when technology is going to take over is this differentiated layer, right? Because you want to know that Nike thinks like a human. You don't want to say Nike thinks like a machine, right? And so you want to bring that brand halo back. And the brand halo is a manifestation of how the founders thought, and they had a cultural setup, and we are bringing that kind of thinking back into the system of decision making.
And moving on to this aspect, where AI is kind of creating a lot of market space as well. And as we speak about this, traditional AI monetizes through API calls, SaaS, enterprise licensing. You're building infrastructure with 27 digital angels, representing cross-cultural virtues. Walk sophisticated investors through this. What's the revenue model? What are unit economics? And how does virtue scale profitably?
Very interesting question. So, like, we think about the revenue in 3 layers. One is the infrastructure layer. The second is like what you pointed out, the practical implementation layer, like the app layer. And the third one is primarily like the network effects that are created because of the intelligence that we are able to source.
Yeah.
The first is the infrastructure layer, which I talked about, the horizontal layer. The horizontal layer is the 27 digital angels. Like, what is a digital angel? Like everything that makes us human: humility, love, compassion, forgiveness, temperance, justice, all of these. And then there are some in conflict with the other, right? So how do we model all of this behavior? What does good behavior look like? And what are the outcomes, right, that are expected, like when you kind of invoke a virtue, right? So that's the horizontal layer, and that we are actually selling as a infrastructure. So think of this as almost every transaction that is created is going through this framework. It's almost like Stripe. Just like Stripe is for payment, this is like Stripe for ethics. In order that you come up with ethical behavior, we'll charge you for that, and people will pay for it because they want to CYA, they want to cover their asses, because they have to make sure that decisions are in compliance, is in basically regulatory framework that is stipulated by the government. They have to explain those decisions, so people will have to pay for it. Okay, so that's the first revenue. So as the transactions go, we'll take a part of the cut. The second one that we have is basically the entire app layer. So logistics as an instance, pharma as an instance, healthcare as an instance, hospitality, right? These are all different segments that we will charge. And primarily, like, this could be an API call or like a typical SaaS model that we have, but these are all domain models which has infused the virtue and the goodness that we'll be also selling. Okay. So and you can set the temperature, you can bring, like, your own values of a company, how they kind of translate into the brand halo, and every decision that organization makes and the apps that are developed in the future. And my hypothesis is apps will become irrelevant in the future. The traditional ERP type systems will be gone, because you'll have the data, and then, like, someone will ask a question and it will automatically render the UI and it will tell you like how the decisions need to be made. And once you say great, or sometimes like the decisions are automatically made, it goes and percolates itself into all of the rules, and the rules will be executed. That's the future, okay, of all systems. And whether it's happening in the next 5 years, whether it's happening in the next year, it's happening for sure, guaranteed. A traditional way: click a button, go to a next screen, click a button, go to the next screen, click a button, go to the next screen, gone. I can ask a question, it will give me the answer, like it will also tell why the answer makes sense, and it will go and self-execute itself. Okay, and so when you have machines doing that, what tends to happen is there is a value stream that is created, because you're creating new things. You're able to unlock new workflows. You're able to create more coordination and collaboration, and the collaboration and the coordination takes out the opacity, takes out the insurance guarantees. Because there is darkness, I insure things. When I have complete picture and observability, I don't need insurance. So new products will be developed and new services will be developed, which we will monetize. The third one is the intelligence. Because every transaction is going through the system, now you have the universal lookup of what's going on. That universal lookup, for any company which wants to harness that, we will provide that as an insight. So that is the third source of revenue. So it's a typical like network theory, like how things work. But because we have induced this virtue layer in every layer, whether it's the infrastructure layer, the what I call the modern app layer or the model layer, and the last one is the data or the intelligence layer, all of those, we are able to now charge money across each of those. So that's the revenue model. So sky is the limit, actually, to be honest. Just logistics and supply chain ले लीजिए. Lot of people don't know, because logistics and supply chain दिमाग में नहीं आता है. जब तक आपके घर में कोई सामान नहीं आता है, तब तक आप logistics के बारे में सोचते ही नहीं हो. Right? But in the world today, 500 million people work in supply chain, which includes raw material all the way to the consumption. The only two the countries which are bigger than this is China and India. So this is a truly human-centered kind of a function, right? And so the ability to understand how to make humans more effective, not just efficient, is a huge opportunity. And now you now cascade it to every human-centered function, whether it's healthcare, whether it's hospitality. Sky is the limit, actually. So there are like almost 3 billion people working, right? How do you harness and create effectiveness in each of these? And that market is like worth trillions and trillions. So I'm very excited about what it can be. And I'm also not naive to know कि मैं एक अकेला बंदा रहूँगा जो ये करेगा. There will be like 15 other copycats. And I would love that. Because the world needs to get there faster, not me being the only guy getting there.
You have said regulation is coming and companies built ethics first AI will be regulation proof. Quantify this. What is the financial delta, the actual dollar cost between retrofitting ethics onto existing AI versus building it in from day one?
हाँ, ये अच्छा क्वेश्चन है, काफ़ी अच्छा क्वेश्चन है. आपको एक एग्जांपल देता हूँ पहले.
And this should be supported by example because it becomes easier.
For sure. So let me take you back to November 24th, 2012. There was a factory in Bangladesh called Tazreen Fashions. Okay, and there was a major fire accident. A lot of people got killed. Okay, this is in Bangladesh. And when Tazreen happened, Walmart was sourcing product, Disney was sourcing product, was supposed to be sourcing product, by the way. And then I'll tell you the actual story what happened. All of these guys basically were using that factory, and there was child labor as well. तो बच्चे मर गए. And when people went and basically tried to discover what happened, they found Disney intellectual property there. So Disney was in the news cycle for 2 weeks non-stop in Wall Street Journal about non-standard labor practices. And Disney lost 10% of its market share. 10% of its market share. And the valuation. Billions of dollars. एक ही incident में गया काम से. And when the investigation really unfolded, the factory, Disney stopped working with the factory almost a year prior. Okay. But the fact that the intellectual property was not, secured led to the exposure. That is a problem of something gone wrong. Risk. So when AI makes decisions where a human can live or not, someone can be hired or not, a loan is approved or not,
Yes.
you are introducing so much risk into every decision you just made. And so you cannot go and basically say कि चलो यार मैं मेरे existing systems को retrofit करता हूँ. Even if you retrofit that existing decision, आपको क्या झेलना पड़ता है? बहुत सारे आपके सॉफ्टवेयर एंटरप्राइज सॉफ्टवेयर है जो आपने बहुत सालों से accumulate किया है. And the way the CFOs work is they'll say, I'll give you the money to go put a system, go sweat this thing till it dies. तो मल्टी जनरेशनल सॉफ्टवेयर रहते हैं. सो द कॉस्ट ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग द लेगेसी सिस्टम्स, upgrading all of those systems to almost get it to par and make them all compliant and being able to explain the decisions and tell like why a decision was made when you also fired all the humans on the other side. Because what big companies have is big egos.
Yeah.
Big CEOs with big egos. तो वो लोगों ने बोल दिया कि हम लोग AI डालने वाले हैं बड़े कंपनी में, तो we can cut like 3,000 people and they'll come out and say we'll cut 4,000 people. That's what Salesforce said. Now the CPO is coming and saying कि oh sorry what we thought was going to be the real productivity, we're not really getting it. They realize it after the fact. तो ऐसा बहुत सारे mistakes हो जाएंगे. When people are not there to correct some of these systems, it becomes even more expensive to actually build the right mousetrap. Because the intellectual and the institutional knowledge has gone. So when you are automating systems without the knowledge, you're going to automate the wrong things because आपके पास context नहीं है. तो पहला तो cost है, दूसरा institutional knowledge गया और आपको recreate करना है. तीसरा है लॉसूट का कॉस्ट, चौथा है मार्केट वैल्यूएशन का डिग्रेडेशन. All of those get impacted in a significant manner, and this could be catastrophic for companies. Just imagine कि you did something and 10 people got killed, and the backlash. Let's assume for a second कि आपने कुछ मेडिसिन बेच दिया, कहीं बेचना है आपको, ग्लैक्सो स्मिथ क्लाइन बीचम है या रिलायंस भी है, कोई भी है, 1000 लोग मर गए, तो आपको लगेगा कि बेसिकली लाइक जनता खामोश बैठेगा, शेयर होल्डर वाले खामोश बैठेंगे? स्टॉक मार्केट का क्या होगा, उसका स्टॉक का क्या होगा? तो वही है प्रॉब्लम. तो ये इंश्योरेंस जैसा है. So like whatever you're trying to do, if you're able to explain, if you're able to say like there is an audit trail, if there is a safety protocol that like no bad can come to us, it is protected.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, like all the decisions we took were in the best interest of like both the profits and the humans, and we can explain our way through it. That is a powerful kind of system to have, and to build that ground up is easier than trying to retrofit it all, because you don't know the obvious things. And I have lived in corporate for 23 years. I'm probably the only entrepreneur who walked away from all the safeguards and the comforts he had to build this thing. Like, call me stupid, call me like naive, call me like a wackadoo, whatever it is. But I have seen the drama of all these large companies, and I can tell you with guarantee that there is something brewing in some company today which is going to be a lightning rod that they're going to face in 2 years from now.
Okay.
And many things are going to unfold in the next 2 years. Mark my words.
And you're going to just get to see a lot of
Oh, you're going to see a lot of horror
unfolding.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, when a simple thing like Nano Banana came out, and basically they threw like, better imaging software, so many companies could not consume it. There's something called synthetic ID that like, Google puts out.
Yes.
Synth ID. No downstream system could consume it. Google ने बना दिया, great. Google को पता है कि वो fraud है. But बाकी लोगों को पता नहीं ना fraud है. Downstream systems need to be compliant. So ये सारा systems की problem है, सारे companies में के problem है ये. So and now extrapolate it across every decision. HR में हो रहा है, company में, logistics में हो रहा है, right? Operations, finance में हो रहा है. आपको किसी को पे करना है, नहीं करना है. Procurement में हो रहा है. सब जगह में आपको AI के systems आ गए और आपको पता नहीं कि क्या चल रहा है कंपनी में. Imagine the role of the CEO. वो बंदा तो hot seat पे बैठा है हर एक दिन.
Yeah.
वो महान, वो बंदा basically भगवान है. Because I will not want that job.
Yes.
I will not want the job of a CEO of a large company, because it is going to be a hot seat in the future. Because something, somewhere, someone would have done something, and it's a needle in the haystack problem. मर्फी का लॉ पकड़ लेता है आपको, और यहाँ आपने 4 जगह में खड्डा खोद के रखा है आपने, कहीं से भी कुछ भी आ सकता है. So that is what we are creating.
Yeah, right. But every investor asks, what is the key person risk? You hold the vision, the patents, the relationships. If something happens to you tomorrow, does Angelic Intelligence die with you? How have you de-risked this for early investors?
अरे यार, ये तो इन्वेस्टर का क्वेश्चन है.
No, I don't mean that, it could be an accident, but I also mean like probably if you just let go of this. Yeah.
So like, in corporate में succession planning बहुत important है. Right? Like even if your boss tells you are the greatest superstar, he would be planning your succession no matter what.
Yes.
That is the corporate reality. You are just a number on the balance sheet.
Yes.
किसी के number, accounting books में. So from that perspective, if I step back and think about like what I'm creating, we have filed for close to 43 patents on this. 43 patents mein every patent has about like 20 claims. So it's a rich portfolio of like claims that we have that makes this very unique a company. And all of that has been assigned to the parent entity. It is not assigned to Shekhar Natarajan. It is assigned to Sayog. So I have protected the company and its intellectual property and the guarantees it provides against the company's name. Okay, तो मैं मर गया तो IP है, de-risked. The second thing is, I believe in the fact that basically there has to be proper documentation of everything that we are doing. So I have created a lot of conceptual frameworks, and through the process of filing of patents and other things, architecturally we have like resolved a lot of these issues, and we have a clear marching order of how things need to unfold and when it unfolds. So there is also ability to go and look at all of the artifacts to be able to understand the vision and how the vision needs to come to life, because that is the role of a founder, to be able to not only articulate the vision but also lay out the logical steps of how this gets to unfold. Strategic level, tactical level, operational level. Day 1, day 10, day 190, day 2000, and on and on. Third is like the team. My team is who's who, like people who advise, like, you know, heads of state on AI. Okay, people who have worked for like large enterprise companies, people who have built like Apple Pay as an example. So people who have built like, you know, enterprise software. So they are stooped, and they are really smart people, and we have assembled a very strong team of senior execs and also like people who can go get the work done. That gives us the robustness from a succession planning perspective. And because this is always top of mind for me, and I know that like life is very uncertain, I have always planned for my succession in the company, and as such groomed all of those people. So we have protected ourselves from the way we think about IP to the way we think about, like, you know, the frameworks that we need to build and the unfolding of it, the strategy of how we go execute this, the team that is going to go do this, and then, like, you know, where is the succession, how do we unfold, what are the steps, all of those things. Now, do I have a perfect plan? Probably not. But what I'm also seeing at the same time, while this is happening, is a lot of people have been talking about angelic type of frameworks. So I know if even Angelic dies, which makes me a bad CEO, by the way, if I die, Angelic dies with me, that I wanted to make sure that that problem is not, like, it doesn't like die with me and for the industry. There are many people I can tell they're also thinking about a similar concept. They're talking about it in a different way. They may be not talking about it as robust as I am talking about it, because I've been thinking about it for the last like a decade or so. Right? Like, how does intelligence systems come to life? And so it may not be as robust, but I know smart people will figure it out along the way. So the industry as a whole is de-risked because there are other people thinking about it. Orchestro and Sahyog is also de-risked because of the action I've already taken. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does, because you are balancing both the sides of it, basically.
Yeah.
More of the, you know, industry aspect also, and at the same time, you know.
And industry, we are
Orchestro.
actually going and like creating the literacy around it.
And as you said, like, basically, you will also have your succession, you know, in a way.
Absolutely.
And you have kind of planned it out.
Yes.
In a manner.
And because we are also creating the literacy within the industry, we are talking about it, and we are talking about it openly. And we are telling, like, this is what we are doing, come copy us, right? Because, you know, they'll copy, but they'll copy in their way they understood it.
Exactly.
It may not be like exactly. So I will be very different in execution, the way I execute it, then they will probably. But, you know, idea to hai, thought hai udhar, right? And smart people will come up with a better version of it. And I'm completely cool. ये मेरा थोड़ी ना monopoly है. मैं थोड़ी ना reliance हूँ. So I think like that, I think is going to be the future. Like, you know, I think angelic or angelic like thinking will actually come to life for sure. And Orchestro and Sahyog is also secured at the same time.
Sure, like, going by your answer, I must say that you are super confident of what you are producing, and at the same time, super secure of, you know, what you have kind of created. But moving on to something else altogether, honest question to you, in fact, you're talking 1,000-year time frames. Investors operate in 3 to 5 year horizons. That's a fundamental mismatch. How do you bridge that gap, and what is the realistic exit strategy? IPO, strategic acquisition, or are you building a generational company that never exits?
अच्छा क्वेश्चन है. This is a great question. So let me step back and like tell you the genesis of why this company got started in the first place. So my father used to deliver telegrams, okay, making 175 rupees a month. My brother is bipolar, and वो time पे bipolar माने आप दरगाह जाओ, मंदिर जाओ, चर्च जाओ, यहाँ पे सो जाओ, वो पौर्णमी वो रात में सो जाओ, अमावस्या के रात में सो जाओ, ये होता है, right? And so I grew up in that kind of a situation. But my father never held on to anything he made. And so was my mom. हमारे घर में like चावल भी नहीं रहता था तो चावल दे देंगे बगल वाले को क्योंकि वो बंदे को चिकन पॉक्स है, उसको चावल चाहिए, हम लोग को नहीं. तो we used to always think like what economists will think is illogical, we will actually, my father and mother will do it. Okay? And but little did I know that they were actually sowing the seeds of humanity, you know, and values that we subscribe into. And that was a boomerang in my life. जब भी कोई भी problem आया, and every time I thought I'm dead and I'm knocked out, something will show up, and it opens the door, and life is beautiful. So my father passed away in 2005 for misdiagnosis, by the way. Like, you know, everyone, the doctors kept thinking he had like a ear problem, but he had a tumor. So, and his was like non-malignant tumor, but like it kept expanding, and he started getting strokes, and he went into a vegetative state. And it, you know, progressed, you know, over a period of time. So we thought like, you know, he's dementia aa gaya hai unko. But we did not know, like, and we did not have the resources to kind of figure out like, you know, what he was going through. But my son was born in 2020, height of COVID.
Okay.
I held my son, and that guy looked exactly like my father. Same face, same eyes, same soul. Okay? And in that moment, मेरे दिमाग में एक ही आया. What my father did, how do I pass it on to my son? And in the age of digital, can I do it differently? So there were many angels who came to my life and showed me direction. Like मुझे लोग बहुत सारे लोग पूछते हैं कि angel क्या है भाई? Angel बोलते रहते हो, कौन है angel? So angel for me are people who show up in your life whenever you're veering off the destination you're going to go. They come and remind you to stay in that lane. वो लोग angel होते हैं. They are always like, so you're always guided in the right direction. ये आपका destiny है. आप जा रहे हो कहीं और, वो आके रिमाइंड करते हैं भैया ये यहाँ नहीं जाना, आपको यहाँ जाना है. And they open the door. They see the non-obvious in you. वो होते हैं एंजल. एंड ऐसे लोग बहुत सारे हैं दुनिया में, बहुत सारे. मुझे 15-20 लोग मिल गए मेरे ज़िंदगी में. 45 years I found like 15-20 people who did this to me. Like my investors are my angels, my friends are my angels, my mentors are my angels. बहुत सारे लोग मिल गए ऐसे मुझे. तो can I replicate that digitally and leave a better world for my life, for my son? That way he can have the boomerang effect of what I had. And can it be multi-generational? मैं अगर मेरे डैड ने 10 लोगों का अच्छा किया, तो मैं अगर मिलियन लोगों का अच्छा करूंगा, तो मेरा बेटा 1 बिलियन लोगों का अच्छा करेगा. Right? And so this is why I created the company. It was for helping people who are invisible become visible, ताकि किसी को जेवर ना बेचना पड़े, ताकि किसी को अपने घर में लाइक यू नो चावल नहीं है लेकिन चावल देना पड़े, किसी को लोन ला लेना पड़े जाने के लिए, स्टडी करने के लिए, किसी को बेसिकली लाइक यू नो वी डोंट लाइक टेल देम दे कैन नॉट लाइक एक्सेस अ रूम और अ लाइब्रेरी, which all of this happened to me. Right? So I wanted to ensure that none of that happened to anyone else. And the only way I can do that is not being like an NGO. NGO को कोई पैसा नहीं देता है, तो कैपिटलिस्ट स्ट्रक्चर में रह के फाउंडेशनल वैल्यू करना है. तो दैट इज व्हाई आई बिल्ड दिस कंपनी. नाउ how do I make sure that this is going to be a multi-generational one obviously like investor क्या देखता है, सब लोग बोलेंगे like virtue अच्छा है भाई, virtue बहुत अच्छा है, like our virtues your virtues are all aligned, सब लोग वही बोलेंगे, but जब पैसा देने को आता है कोई नहीं देता है. virtue गया तेल लेने. राइट, कैपिटलिस्ट के दिमाग से ही सोचता है.
करेक्ट.
फैमिली ऑफिस भी रहने दो, वो बोलेगा मेरे को पैसा कब बना के देगा भाई, मैंने 10 रुपया दिया तू 100 रुपया कब कमा के देगा. तो वी आर लिविंग इन दैट वर्ल्ड, so we have to play by that game. So what we set to do is basically we have our own revenue plans which we are very confident of making, and we will probably beat that plan because it's very conservative. कौन नहीं खरीदेगा? Tell me one guy who doesn't want to buy technology which mimics what good humans do. You have to be a bad human not to buy the technology. So and if you're a good human, you have to buy my technology. So it is an unlimited potential that we have that is sitting in front of us. So we'll make our numbers. So that will actually वो जो thirst है ना investors के, वो तो हो जाएगा खत्म. But foundationally मैंने क्या किया? I have set up a foundation. So 100% of my equity in the company goes to human good. So my son is going to only live on my salary. That is the statement I want to make to my son, and I also want to make sure that he knows that his generation is to harness the good and not the wealth. The good that I'm creating, not the wealth I'm creating.
But why so?
Because when I went to United States of America, I went with $34. मेरा क्या हुआ? मैं तो बच ही गया. अगर मेरा बेटा if he has the brains, I'm sure he'll also succeed in life. And उसको काफी सारा दिमाग है, right? The way he actually carries himself, I'm sure he's sorted out. And भगवान ने मुझे काफी दिया है that I don't have to worry about, right? कल को मुझे कुछ हो भी गया, my wife and my son, they're secured, right? So I don't need more wealth. More wealth creates more headaches. When you create more wealth, you're trying to figure out मैं tax कैसे evade करूँ. वो क्यों चाहिए आपको झंझट?
You're seeing from the big picture.
हाँ, वो क्यों चाहिए झंझट आपको? तो पैसा है तो बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम्स भी आ जाता है एकदम. तो वो नहीं चाहिए मुझे सिर्फ कंपनी बनाना है, एंड आई जस्ट वांट टू मेक श्योर दैट एक्चुअली गोज टू ह्यूमन गुड. सो आई ऑल्सो वांट हिम टू नो द वैल्यू ऑफ what I'm trying to create, that human aspirations take a higher precedence over wealth creation, and that is the foundational value my dad gave me. And if I just gave him wealth and no aspiration of that sort, he'll be like some lunatic in the future, which I don't want him to be. So these are all the considerations that I have. So that's why the way we have set it up is we have ensured that public good is delivered. At the same time, we are actually making sure that we are able to also deliver on the short-term promises. And so it's like creating internet. जब internet create हुआ था, we didn't know that Uber will come, Amazon will come, Google will come, ये सारे companies आएंगे, but हो गया. So we want to structurally set it up in a way that money flows, but basically the value goes out to where it really belongs, humans. And that is the concept of Angelic.
That's interesting, I must say that. But as we speak about bio bubble, there's this AI bubble which has also been curated. Some investors think we are in an AI bubble. Others think we are at the beginning of the biggest transformation in human history. You have lived through ERP, cloud, and now AI cycles, pattern recognition. Are we in a bubble, or is this the real inflection point?
I think we are close to an inflection point. Yeah. So if you look at how this is just my hypothesis, by the way, right? उतना ज़्यादा दिमाग लगाने का ज़रूरत नहीं है इसमें. तो फंडामेंटली आप देखोगे कि पैसा कहाँ आ रहा है. You follow the money trail, and then you know facts of a business, right? So if you look at सब कुछ आज के रेट में, everything is centered around Nvidia and OpenAI. सारा पैसा उधर ही घूम रहा है. तो Nvidia says we'll build factories for $500 billion. Next thing you know, the government issued them a government contract to use Nvidia chips for $500 billion. Microsoft बोलता है कि हम लोग OpenAI में 20% का शेयर, and they sign a contract, long term contract. तो इसने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट दिया, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का वैल्यू आ गया, So now because Microsoft owns 20% of OpenAI, now OpenAI is valued at $500 billion. Microsoft's valuation like went up by like $120 billion. तो पैसा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में ही घूम रहा है. Nvidia छोटे कंपनीज को खरीद लेता है और बोलता है कि Nvidia चिप यूज कर भाई. क्यों? जरूरत नहीं है. Not everything needs a GPU. Neither it needs a TPU. Because none of these decisions are real time. Some of these. So finding the right hardware to solve the problem is the answer. But हम लोग like we are getting caught in this hype cycle. तो Nvidia को भगवान बना दिया, OpenAI को भगवान बना दिया, सब लोगों को भगवान बना दिया. तो पैसा उधर ही घूम रहा है. इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में घूम रहा है. तो प्रैक्टिकल यूज केसेस बहुत सारे कम हैं. And people are making some very bad choices. And I hopefully like they stop making that. क्योंकि क्या हो रहा है कि they are actually saying कि because we invested, I want you to prove that like AI cannot do that job. Only then I will fill that job. ये हो रहा है. तो ये discussion जो है वो गंदा है discussion. Because we don't understand fully what the human is trying to do before we are trying to replace the human.
Yeah.
That is happening. So we need to go address that problem. So when you look at like the use cases that are being generated so far, it is not accretive to the investments which are going on. So the cycle will break. And so the hype will fall. So the companies which are going to last coming out of all of, so 90% of the companies will get wiped out for sure. So there are three layers. One is the infrastructure layer, the model layer, and then obviously the app layer. App layer, you don't need apps in the future. That's gone. Model layer, many models are coming, it's going to get commoditized. Infrastructure is like the place where like people will make investments, and for sure infrastructure will be something which is needed and it is very robust. So good companies will emerge out of that, out of this bubble. And then once the bubble is reset, the survivors will come out. .com गया, Google आया. 2008 का crisis हुआ, बहुत सारे companies आए. So every time there is like a massive restructuring like this, good companies emerge out of it. So I feel like like a lot of good companies and the trajectory of those companies will emerge in the next 18 months once the hype actually falls down. Most of the time what happens is there is a lag between when the technology was like kind of like thought and when it is realized from a value potential, when you start seeing the benefits and then you catch the curve again. So we are in that cycle right now, for sure. For sure.
That's quite interesting also because, I mean...
Follow the money trail.
Yeah.
Just follow the money trail.
Yeah.
कौन किसके लिए क्या कर रहा है? Like कहाँ से कहाँ contract जा रहा है? कहाँ से कहाँ commercial engagement हो रहा है? And there are all kinds of lunatic companies that are getting like funded.
But that does make AI very powerful also. Do you feel so? What's your
I think like it's bad investment. Right? And so I think like a lot of companies will go bust. Like every time a new model comes out, like 10,000 companies get wiped out.
Yes.
Right? So I think if you're only an AI app company and basically like you're an API company, like stitching like new UI on top of it and selling that as a product, all those investors should run for shelter. वो सारे companies गए काम से. Right? So ये होने वाला है. That is, I'm not scaring anyone, but I think that's the reality. So the only two layers which is going to like really exist in the future with a lot of robustness is the infrastructure layer and the layer on top of it, which is model layers or the development layer. Whether it is open sourced, whether it is controlled or closed, and whether it is like what are the different types of reasoning models, what is the ensemble of different like use cases for each industry and vertical domains जो create होने वाले हैं उसके knowledge base. That is where all of the money and the value is getting created. And then there's going to be a lot of reshuffling of the economy. Value will be created in other places that you never imagined. That is what is going to happen.
Here's what keeps institutional investors up at night. AI is a black box. Nobody knows how decisions are made, which means nobody knows who is liable when things go wrong. Your virtue has a virtue layer. when your AI makes a decision, can you show me exactly why it chose what it chose? And when it makes a mistake, who's accountable?
हाँ, आज के रेट में, like as I said, opacity is plausible deniability. Right? So the way the systems are deployed is, obviously there is a AI provider, system provider. There is a consumer of that, which is an enterprise, and then there is like people who are developing it, and people who are developing it, like they have the privilege problem, in the sense they haven't experienced the colors of life. Okay, so they don't know the full context. The enterprise problem is they don't have the context, neither they have the data readiness.
Yeah.
Okay, and AI companies, like it's all vaporware. Okay, now when like all of these guys are like putting something together and nothing can be explained, because आप जाके chat GPT में कुछ question पूछो, prompt लगा लो, and you ask a question, it will give you an answer. कल आओ, ask the same question, आपको अलग answer मिलेगा.
Yes.
Probability है वो, right? So you cannot make decisions in an enterprise in a probabilistic framework. ट्रक आया या गया, बीच का कुछ नहीं है, right? आपने procurement order दिया या नहीं दिया, बीच में कुछ नहीं है. There's binary. All of these are binary. Execution decisions are largely binary. There's no ambiguity, right? Strategies are all ambiguous. Options are ambiguous. Execution is not ambiguous. So therein lies the biggest problem. And now if you combine that कि हम लोग को ये नहीं चमका भाई कि ये stochastically इसने कैसा determine किया कि ये right decision है कि नहीं, तो अभी blame करने जाओगे तो किसको blame करोगे? डेटा नहीं था, वो प्रॉब्लम था, या एआई का मॉडल का प्रॉब्लम है, या जो बंदे को कलर्स ऑफ लाइफ नहीं पता था उसने कोड किया है. तो हर एक को उंगली दिखाएगा और कोई भी अकाउंटेबल नहीं रहेगा. दैट इज अ प्रॉब्लम. नाउ there are many examples of how you can make this decision, right? Like let's take an example of credit card being approved, right? You may be denied a credit card. If you didn't know that you got denied a credit card, you will never know the reason why you did not get you got denied. आपका credit score भी अच्छा है, सब कुछ अच्छा है, but you never got the answer properly. Then you can go and like file a lawsuit. US में वही होता है. But if you are able to say कि आपका इसलिए नहीं हुआ क्योंकि आपका debt to income ratio काफ़ी गंदा है, and you are like falling way below the threshold of like approval, and basically you also have the fact that whoever has given you loans, they have become predatorial because you are not able to repay on time. You are actually protecting the consumer by not giving them the loan. But if you told the consumer, here are all the reasons why, they would be probably okay with it. They'll still not be like less angry or furious with you because they wanted a loan, but at least you are actually giving them the right explanation to it. Today that doesn't happen because the structure is input, model, output. If you introduce a layer called input, virtue layer, model and output, now you are able to create the decision tree in between that. Why the decision was made a certain way. So that is what is the most important thing. Making it auditable, making it trackable, and making sure that there is explanation to that decision tree. That if you are able to provide, that is a killer capability. That's why if you go review some of the reports out there, 77% of enterprises cannot trust their AI systems today. Yes. That's a big number. And that will probably be at like 80%, 90% because the ego of the CEO making the choice to be an AI first company is probably preventing that from coming out now. But in the future, when everyone gets on the bandwagon, everyone will say AI is not trustable. वो आने वाला है. So I think that is the real problem we have in the future, where if we can solve this explainability problem and create trust, trust is equal to brand value. And brand value means better pricing power. So for every brand which wants to, retain their, pricing power, they have to become better in explaining their decision to their customers.
Lovely, lovely answer, I must say that. Yeah. But finally, I am not going to let go of you without this question. And this is the final question for investors. Every major tech shift creates winners and losers. Cloud computing killed on-premise software companies. Mobile destroyed desktop-first businesses. If Angelic Intelligence becomes the standard, which current AI companies survive and which become the next blockbuster video?
अच्छा क्वेश्चन है. So Angelic Intelligence is going to be regulating these companies. That is what will happen. Because if you think about it, right, what is Angelic trying to do? Angelic is actually trying to create a human index score. So it is basically making sure your decisions are compliant with the cultural values of your company, and you're able to explain it better. So every computational decision goes over through that lens. Okay. So whatever is the output of these existing models, they have to be compliant. So I am the governance layer, sort of. Okay.
Yeah.
So we are regulating these guys from going wild without the government having to step in. गवर्नमेंट अगर स्टेप इन कर देता है तो पॉलिसी का प्रॉब्लम हो जाता है. पॉलिसी ऑलवेज लैग्स लाइक कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस. तो कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस आने के बाद ही पॉलिसी डालते हैं हम लोग. उसके पहले सोचते नहीं है, राइट. सो ये सारा ही ये गवर्नेंस का प्रॉब्लम है हमेशा. यू आर नॉट एबल टू सी थ्रू ऑल ऑफ द डिफरेंट स्टेक होल्डर्स एंड ऑल द डिफरेंट 360 व्यू नहीं रहता है. तो वी ऑलवेज मेक डिसीजंस इन द हाइंडसाइट. So how do you govern better without having the policies in place? Well, through this kind of a framework. Now, who are the winners and losers in all of this? I think the winners and losers in all of this is like Meta will be a loser, okay, which is Facebook, because everyone who's relying on extraction method or rent economy, they're extracting the rent. एक basically buyer है, एक seller है, or a demand side and the supply side, and I'm sitting in between as a platform and I'm extracting rent, and the more rent I extract, right, the more power to me. Uber, like powerless people. Driver is a powerless guy. Passenger is a powerless guy. So Uber has all the power. They're extracting rent. They can extract any rent. Aap you are unemployed, I will like pay you less. That's what Uber does.
Yes.
Like you are needing like car ride immediately, I will charge you more. Extraction. So जिसका भी extraction economics है, वो लोग गए बाढ़ में. वो लोग गए. Right? They will all be consumed, because for them they will not be able to stand the test of time of regulatory frameworks hitting them. And also the explainability of these decisions, because they are like wired that way. The DNA is built that way. And culture within the company will create antibodies which will prevent the revenue loss and the profit losses. So all these companies are at risk. Will OpenAI survive? Probably. Will it be as valuable in the future? Probably not. Right? Will Nvidia be a valuable company in the future? Probably. Not because Nvidia made GPUs, but Nvidia acquired a lot of companies and capabilities which makes Nvidia in the future. Right? So infrastructure companies will survive. Will Google survive? DeepMind will survive. Probably Google Ads will not survive, because again it's a extraction economy. Search gaya. The way people are searching is very different. So search economics gaya. Ad economics gaya. So everyone who's into this kind of extracting the rent philosophy, they are going to be the blockbuster videos of the future. And I solely predict that the winners are going to be who are going to build an infrastructure moat, deep infrastructure moat, and there will be a lot of consolidation of that infrastructure as well, providers. And like Nvidia will gobble up a lot of chip manufacturers, वगैरह, and model companies will start acquiring other model companies because they cannot build their own models. And they want to dilute their own existing models. And so I think those kinds of companies will be there for the future. But everyone besides that, watch out. And if I think about Amazon is a little bit of an anomaly. Okay. Amazon not only is a hybrid. They extract. If you're on the marketplace, वगैरह, like they do that. It's a rent extraction model too, but they have logistics, right? And they have logistics gives them the ability to create a control architecture of movement of products. And so it is their own captive network. So Amazon as a company in the world of AI will survive. and will thrive because they have created the physical capability to manage this. So I think that's my hypothesis. Every other company, not so sure. Not so sure. Meta, all those things, I'm not so sure.
Well, thank you so much for holding this conversation upright and upfront. And it was interesting to know the AI insights completely from you. Thank you so much for coming on this show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.